the Transportation Fairness Alliance, as there are many groups who are AstroTurf, have this name where they sound like they're great, wholesome stuff. And it turns out that the Desmog blog, shout out to Desmog, has uncovered that this is really an anti-EV, pro-fossil fuel lobbying group that is just out there spreading anti-EV PR. And if I've mentioned it on the show before, if you listen to the podcast Drilled, they go through the whole history of how PR started in America, how it was used by the tobacco industry, how it's being used by the fossil fuel industry. And so when I read something like this, that at first you might think, what? They're hiding behind this? That's not how that shouldn't be. No, they do this kind of stuff all the time. And it's great that it's been uncovered. There's they hide behind this whole thing of, oh, we're just trying to provide low fuel costs for farmers, and no, they're lobbying to get more incentives and tax breaks for fossil fuels and to put up barriers to electric vehicle sales. There you go.
It's shocking that those lobbying groups just continue to proliferate. Like it's shocking that they're out to actually mislead the public, to push them into a narrative that is not good for everybody, except for the fossil fuel owners, whoever's pushing and paying their narrative. It's lobbying at a national scale.
It is, and with deceit right at the heart of it.
Oh yeah, and deceptive naming practices are, it's a plethora of tactics to get you confused. One thing I always do recommend with people, especially when it's election season and you start seeing the ads and hearing the ads, forget about everything that they say. Only pay attention to one thing. The very small, tiny type that says, who the hell funded this ad? Look up those people. Always find out who those people are, because that will tell you whether or not everything in that ad was designed to actually address the specific issue in a way that is pro it or con it. And you have to know who's funding it, because the language in there is deliberately chosen to obfuscate. And I can say this because I've been in advertising since I was 16. It's like prostitution, only it's worse. It's your brain. And you're selling all kinds of crap, and you're using your creativity to manipulate people to either do one thing or the other. And that's why I picked up out of that and I tried to move towards science and government communications, so at least you'd understand why we're making you compost your garbage. I'd rather do that. But this is infuriating to me, just because I've watched it and I've always been interested and involved in politics and how language and art manipulates the people, that how they perceive things and what they interpret from it. And I've watched it play out in advertising, specifically around politics. And each issue, I can always find an example of something just like this, where there's a group that has a name that is supposedly, I love birds though, the Water Bird Protection and Free Open Spaces Act. It sounds wonderful. I'm voting yes for it. And then you read who's funding it, and it's like, no, we actually want to. When they say free open spaces, they mean don't charge us to go drill in a national preserve. And Water Bird Protection, technically, we're not going to shoot them. We're just going to dirty up their environment a little bit. And that's, it's the most worst thing about American politics are these PACs, because ideally, even if you feel that PACs are free speech, they should have to clearly state, not in 10-point type at the screen, you have to find it. It should be in 40-point type, this is funded by, and you should be able to know who that is. It should be clearly stated. The name should not be confusing, and there should be no confusing words at all. But because it's not illegal to confuse the hell out of a voter, well, it's up to you, dear friends.
Well, it reminds me of that sunshine protection bullshit that that Florida tried to pull a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Where if you voted yes to protect the sunshine, whatever, you were making it so that you couldn't use solar power at anywhere.
Oh, yeah, or water bills where like you can't, if you think you're protecting the water, oh, it means you can't have a rain barrel.
Yeah. Protecting the water from you.
Yes. From you using it for free.
Yes. Giving it to Nestle.
Right. Yeah.
A little more transparency and honesty would certainly do us all a lot of good, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Plain English. Honestly, a plain English language amendment for political advertising would go a long way to stopping this. Because if you have to clearly state, and it cannot, if it had to pass even a committee that, you know, was made up of a hybrid of elected officials and citizens that serve on a commission to approve the languages of these things, to say, okay, I can't tell what the hell this is. You know, it would go a long way to stopping it. I don't know if it's possible on a federal level. I'm only good on that where it comes to local politics. But something needs to be done because this is bullshit.